Well, howdy there, folks. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Winston, and if you followed us for a while, you know that me and Kim used to do a lot of exploring in our 2013 Toyota Prius. You might know us from hit videos like Overland Prius Tour or almost getting stuck in the snow in our Prius. Yeah, that was probably stupid. Over the past 6 or 7 months, we've moved on to a 2004 100 Series Land Cruiser. But we did spend about 2 years exploring in our Prius. The first part of those years were not very heavily overlanding, but as we got more into it, we decided that the Prius wasn't really cutting it for us. But I did want to offer some perspective on overlanding in whatever vehicle you might have. A lot of the videos here on YouTube that cover how to start overlanding typically come from people with super built out rigs, and they always have this one thing to say, and it doesn't matter what you drive. And I totally agree with that, and I think it's a great perspective to have. It's hard to get an idea of how to do this with whatever vehicle you might have when you're not seeing it a whole lot. So, we spent 2 years doing this in a Prius, and I think we have some pretty valuable information to share about how to get out there and do this safely, no matter what car you have. So tip number 1 is to know your vehicle. Obviously, the Prius had some huge limitations. We didn't have great ground clearance, we didn't have all-terrain tires, and we didn't have all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. But with a little bit of perseverance, you can still get out into the backcountry, at least somewhat into the backcountry, with whatever vehicle you have, and still be safe about it and still have a really good time. I think the most important thing about knowing your vehicle is judging obstacles with your gut. If you come up on something and you say, I'm not comfortable with this, you probably shouldn't do it. There were definitely a few times we found ourselves on a rough road in the Prius, and we came up to maybe a rocky section in the road and it was uphill, and we thought, well, are we going to be able to do this? With a little bit of scouting and spotting and just generally trying to be as safe as possible, we did it. And I think a lot of the times people think that you need a super built out four-wheel drive to do a lot of these roads, when in reality they're not that hard, and you can still get out and experience the backcountry and get to some of these campsites with a Prius. And then there was definitely situations where the opposite was the case, and most of the time they were weather related. So the road was snowed out, the road was too muddy, maybe there were some rocks that were a little bit too high for us. There was a certain time that we were out in Central Oregon with some friends. They were in a Tundra with a lift kit, and we were in our Prius, and we were coming up this road, and it was a bit snowy and a little bit wet, and we finally got up a little bit higher to this point where it was just a huge snow patch for probably 100 or 200 yards, and the snow was not terribly deep, but just deep enough to make us a little bit nervous about it. And we sat there and pondered it for a little while and finally decided, let's just turn around, we'll go find another campsite. So knowing the limitations of your vehicle and what it can do are huge factors in getting out there safely and still having a good time. So that covers a few downfalls of using a car like a Prius, but what are some benefits? Well, probably the first one is miles per gallon. We did a few very long trips in our Prius. We spent almost nothing on gas, especially in comparison to the Land Cruiser. Last year, we did a trip out to the Sawtooth Mountains, and we drove from Portland, Oregon to the Sawtooth Mountains and back, obviously, and we spent, I think, around $100 on gas, where in the Land Cruiser, that would probably be closer to like $200 or $250, maybe even more. Another benefit to the Prius is how much space is in the back. I'm probably around 6'2", and during the winter, Kim and I slept in the back of the Prius, and I didn't fit terribly comfortably, but I was able to fit back there as long as you push the seats all the way up. And it works as a camper. There's plenty of people out there living in their Prius, and I've seen a few tall fellas and ladies out there that are, doing it fairly comfortably. If you're only using the Prius as like an overland camping vehicle, there's also a company called Habitant that makes these tents that sort of go over the back of the hatch. So you open up the hatch, the tent goes over the top. That gives you even more room and is pretty cool because you have a bit of like sitting up room in the back and you're not so cramped down in there. Another thing you can do is you can get a lift kit, you could get some all-terrain tires, and that solves really two of the biggest issues with the Prius, which is ground clearance and just traction in general. So tip number 3 is research. When you're driving a vehicle that's suboptimal for off-roading, you have to do a whole lot more research than you would think, because you need to know how well the roads are graded, what the weather conditions are like, if the road is prone to mud or ice, and those things are very important because they will stop you right in your tracks, especially when you're in a vehicle that has low ground clearance. The reality is, though, for most forest roads in the US, I would say like 80% of them, at least 80% of the ones that we've driven, and we've driven a lot of them, are pretty well graded. They might be really washboardy, but you could still do it in a Prius-like vehicle. And, you know, there's plenty of camp options along those well-graded roads. Another really important aspect of research is having maps. So we like to use Guide GPS, and we have a bunch of layers saved on Guide GPS. We have MVUM, which is the Forest Service roads. We have the public lands, and we have satellite and all those other types of layers. That sort of is typically what we use when we're out on the trail. The MVUM maps will actually tell you certain roads, what types of vehicles those roads are open to, what type of material those roads are made out of. So it'll tell you like it's graded gravel, or that it's, you know, primitive and rocky. So you can get an idea of what roads you're looking at and if your vehicle will be able to make it down those roads. Research just really helps you be smart about it and not get yourself in an off-road pickle. But also, to that point, don't be scared to get out there and just do it, because there were plenty of times where we were out on a road and we were a bit worried about what might happen if we tried to do a certain obstacle. And the conditions were good, we were being safe about it, and we just did it. And it was really satisfying and rewarding to be able to do that in a car like a Prius. Another part of research is, you know, watch some self-recovery videos, buy yourself some cheap traction boards. You don't have to go get Max Tracks, but, you know, have something that can help you get out of a sticky situation. You know, maybe you're a little bit bogged in mud. Some cheap traction boards will help you. There's even a lot of just DIY recovery stuff where you take some sticks, you shove them under the tire, and that gets you out of a situation where you might be stuck. So I would recommend go watch some self-recovery videos of people that, you know, maybe they're not using a winch or something like that, and you can get an idea of how to get yourself out of a situation if you find yourself in one. When you're doing your research for areas that you want to go visit, always have a backup plan. Always. When you're in a car that is suboptimal for off-roading, you're not always going to be able to get far out into the backcountry, and typically those spots that are a little bit easier accessed, they'll be more packed with people. Not always, obviously. You want to have a backup plan in case roads are closed, in case conditions are bad. So whenever you're doing your research for an area that you want to go to, just have a few different routes that you plan to explore. So number 4 is sort of the overall point of this video, and it's just use what you have. I think everybody should experience backcountry camping in our public lands. We all pay for them, and I think the more people that get out there, the more we're going to strive to conserve these beautiful places. And I think everybody should at least get out there and experience being totally alone in nature in the backcountry, because it really is just a super special experience. Using what you have also helps you know if you're even going to like this. You know, there's plenty of people that go out and spend thousands of dollars on these big rigs and vehicles, and, you know, they're like, we're going to go overlanding, and they get out there and they don't really like it, or maybe their family doesn't like it, and then they're selling their rooftop tent on Facebook for half of what they bought it for. Approaching it in a more budget-minded way is gonna help you know if you really like this. You know, it's fun to do all the gear and fun to, you know, nerd out about all the vehicles and stuff, but truly the most important part of all this is experiencing the backcountry in a really unique way. Don't get too caught up in worrying about the vehicle or the gear at first. You know, do it a couple times, see if you really like it, then start thinking about it. So to wrap it up, don't let your vehicle get in the way of you getting out there and exploring. The only way you're going to know if you like it is to just get out there And the only way that you're not going to break the bank and spend a ton of money is to get out there in whatever vehicle you already have. I'm not advocating for anybody to go out and do some crazy wheeling in their Toyota Camry. So just go out there, be smart about it, research the routes that you're going to take, research the weather conditions, just be overly prepared. Have everything that you need. There's plenty of videos out there on gear to carry for backcountry camping, and you should watch those. Maybe I'll link a few of those in the description. So if this video was any help to you, I would love it if you gave us a like. That would be super, super helpful. We're also coming up on 1,000 subscribers, so thank you all very much. I really, really appreciate it. And you know, we're gonna get back to some of the adventure content here pretty soon. We took a bit of a break after our Montana trip, but we've got some fun Oregon desert overlanding adventures planned for the next few weeks. So if you want to stick around and hang out for that, I'd love to have you. So hit that subscribe button, and then yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.